Interesting show on tap here at Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am Nic Rohloff. The Steelers traded George Pickens earlier this morning to the Cowboys. Could they replace Pickens by trading for Tyreek Hill? Plus, we'll close out today's show by looking at a Dolphins cornerback target that may be coming off of the board sooner rather than later. We will start with Tyreek Hill to the Steelers and that potential rumor that could come to fruition. But it was all started by Adam Schefter having the note that the Cowboys are making a trade with the Steelers to acquire the former second-round pick and wide receiver George Pickens. The compensation was finalized, and the Cowboys received Pickens, a 2026 sixth-round pick. The Steelers received a third-round pick in 2026, plus a fifth-round selection in 2027. But this caught a lot of people by surprise because it's like, well, does Pittsburgh have a wide receiver 2 option behind Pickens ready to go to complement DK Metcalf? Not so sure that's the case. But before we talk more about this, help us out and share today's video. Listen, if Tyreek Hill gets traded, we want more people to actually know about that. So share this video, help us out, click the share button, select Twitter/X, and then click post to Twitter. You could also just send it to a friend or family member. Help us continue to grow this Dolphins community by sharing today's video. I think the Steelers absolutely need to find a serviceable replacement for George Pickens. Do I think Pickens is the best wide receiver of all time? No, that is not the case whatsoever. It's why the Steelers ultimately went out and traded their second-round pick for DK Metcalf to get that lead dog. But their wide receiver room outside of Metcalf is very bad, and they did not draft one wide receiver a couple weeks ago in the NFL draft. They didn't. And outside of DK, it's ugly, man. Robert Woods, I like him. He's been a good player in his career, but he doesn't have that much juice left. Calvin Austin isn't really anything special. They are banking on Roman Wilson, the day 2 draft pick from a year ago out of Michigan, to really take a step up after a poor rookie season that he had to deal with a lot of injuries. But you see the room outside of DK Metcalf. It isn't good whatsoever. And talking with Jack Sperry here at Steelers Talk, I think there's a legit possibility that they inquire about Tyreek Hill. It has been a tumultuous offseason for Tyreek with Miami, all stimulating and starting with that Week 18 disaster where after the game, the season ends, Tyreek Hill soft requests the trade. He's been nothing short of a distraction all offseason long on social media anyways. And could Miami try to wipe their hands clean of Tyreek Hill, recoup some assets, and the Steelers get that wide receiver 2 for DK Metcalf and potentially Aaron Rodgers? It's certainly an intriguing hypothetical. But before we get into what a trade comp could look like for Miami, I want to know, would you trade Tyreek Hill? Not to Pittsburgh, but just in general. Type T if you would trade Tyreek Hill. Type K if you'd like to keep him. When looking at what a draft or a trade for Tyreek Hill could look like, this is what I think it would look like from Pittsburgh. That pick that Dallas gave Pittsburgh increases the likelihood that you can get a conditional third-round pick from the Steelers. The Steelers have made a lot of trades. They now have 3 2026 third-round picks. So I think they would be willing to part ways with one of their third-round picks for Tyreek Hill. Now, in this trade, I'm kind of looking back at what Davante Adams went for at the deadline last year when he switched teams from Las Vegas to New York. He went for a conditional third that based off incentives, the team making a certain part in the playoffs, moved up to a second. I think that's very likely for Miami. You get a third-round pick, but if certain incentives and baselines are hit, it could become a second-round pick for the Dolphins. And I would be all in on doing that. But I do want to make it noted that if you are trading Tyreek Hill, it just absolutely has to come after June 1st. And I know some fans thinking about trading Tyreek might not want to wait till June. That's a whole month of May that you have to go through. But the reason why is Hill's got a $27 million cap hit this year. If you trade him prior to June 1st, that number actually gets bumped up to $28 million. So you're paying him $28 million this season to not play for your team. But if you wait till June to trade him, He only has a dead cap hit of $12.7 million, which means you're saving $14.9 million in cap savings this year. But it also saves you $36.4 million in cap savings in 2026. We know Tyreek isn't going to be on the team next year because he has a $52 million cap hit. And if you just cut him prior to June 1st next offseason, you save 36 mil. But you can just get ahead of that now and trade him, save money this year, but also just recoup trade assets rather than losing him for just nothing next offseason. I think getting ahead of trading Tyreek Hill could be a smart decision for Miami, specifically if they get that trade comp that I threw out there from Pittsburgh. Hit that sub button because we will break down Miami Dolphins news and rumors every single day. 30 subscribers away from 69,500. Help us out. Let's get there. But we're also putting out 2 videos on a daily basis here. So hit that sub button. If a news story breaks, we'll cover it. This is obviously the depth chart for Miami at wide receiver currently. It could change, obviously, if they traded Tyreek Hill. And I'll be honest. I am not scared of losing Tyreek Hill. Some people might say, when they look at this room, do you trust Jalen Waddle, Nick Westbrook-Ikini, and Malik Washington to be your lead 3 wide receivers? I would answer it's not the best, but with Jonnu Smith, Devon Achane, Jalen Wright in the mix, I think it could work, especially when you have players like Andrew Armstrong, Taj Washington potentially making an impact after being UDFAs and a 7th-round pick in 2024. But another reason why I wouldn't panic if you traded Tyreek Hill is because I think there are serviceable free agent wide receivers still available. Say you trade Tyreek Hill a month from now, get that conditional 3rd round from Pittsburgh. You can go out and sign a Keenan Allen, an Amari Cooper, a Gabe Davis, who was released today by the Jacksonville Jaguars, a Tyler Boyd or DJ Chark. Like, you replace Tyreek Hill with one of these 5 names, and you have a room of one of these 5, Malik Washington, Nick Westbrook-Ikini, Jalen Waddle, that is a pretty serviceable wide receiver room, but you also added a solid day 2 pick next year's draft and saved yourself money this year as well as in 2026. Like, I have no problem moving off of Tyreek Hill because you could sign one of those 5 guys. You wipe your hands clean of the headache, the person who has been a disaster at times in your locker room. Like, to me, the benefits just outweigh the negatives in a pretty large fashion. I'm sorry, I know Tyreek Hill is arguably a top 5 wide receiver in Dolphins history, and he's only been here for 3 years. But I got no problem finally removing Hill from this locker room, creating a maybe more well-balanced wide receiver room, and saving more money on your books. Might not help you win this season, but you could still stay competitive on offense, especially with the added incentive of the offensive line and hope that you have a better rushing attack as well. Like, to me, the benefits far outweigh the cons. I am absolutely okay with trading Tyreek Hill. Well, folks, the season is going to be here sooner rather than later. And make sure you get your Dolphins jerseys. You can get rookies Kenneth Grant when that jersey number comes available and finalized. Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Waddle. So many different styles, players, jerseys, all of them at chatsports.com/Dolphins jersey. On sale right now. Links in the description and comments of today's video. One more time, chatsports.com/Dolphins jersey. All right, let's move over to the cornerback target that could be coming off the board because ESPN's Jeremy Fowler said that the Seahawks are in discussions with the free agent corner Shaquille Griffin on a potential reunion. Griffin obviously made a name for himself with the Seahawks, spent last year with the Minnesota Vikings. But the reason why we're talking about this is because, well, we have talked about Griffin as a free agent target at cornerback since the NFL draft. We showed you the free agent wide receivers available. Well, the top 6 corners that Miami could go out and sign, I have Griffin in that top 6. And we know Miami's biggest need after the draft is clearly at corner because Jalen Ramsey's still likely to be traded. You didn't draft someone high. All you did is take Jason Marshall Jr. out of Florida in the 5th round. You need to sign 1 or maybe 2 of these guys. And if Griffin comes off the board, well, now you only really have 5 targets available. Griffin, by the way, the second youngest out of any of these 6. And I thought he was actually relatively solid last year. He was in coverage for 435 snaps last year. Put up relatively good numbers. 53% completion percentage, only allowed 2 touchdowns, a QB rating when targeted of 73.8. I'm not going to come up here and act like he is a elite starting boundary corner, but he's an okay CB2 option. I don't think there's any debating that. And the point of bringing this topic up on this episode of the channel is that if he ultimately does get signed by the Seahawks, you just have a limited option. We know Miami is kept in touch with Rasul Douglas, James Bradbury, but Griffin, Gilmore. I mean, these are guys that Dolphins could go out and sign. But if they're off the board, it just creates limited opportunities for Miami to sign 2 free agent corners to really improve that room. It might not be Shaquille Griffin, but let me know one of the corners available that you do want to sign. We showed you the top 6 targets. Maybe the Dolphins go out and trade for one. Who knows? But in free agency, what player from the cornerback room do you want to sign? I'll close the show with this. I think clearing the books could be very, very beneficial to the Dolphins. I know they are arguably 2 of the top 5 players on the team, Jalen Ramsey and Tyreek Hill. But they have been borderline headaches, apparently, in social media with Tyreek Hill. Inside locker room, being late to meetings, allegedly, Jalen Ramsey. You trade both of these players post June 1st, you save, in total, it would be about $22 million if you traded both of them for the cap this year. You save about $40 million plus next offseason. And yes, you're getting rid of 2 of your best players, but it would give you a lot of flexibility to sign players in free agency. You can grab one of the wide receivers we mentioned. You grab 1 or 2 of those corners, or maybe trade one of the picks you get back for Tyreek or Ramsey or one that you already have, and take a gamble on like a Greg Newsome or a Jalen Watson at the cornerback room. It gives you a lot of flexibility, and I think it could make you actually a better team this season as well, being able to add 2 or 3 guys instead of having just Jalen and Tyreek. I know it's crazy, but I truly do believe that could be an avenue Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel go down. And we'll be here for every step of the offseason. Hit that sub button. We're only a couple months away from training camp getting underway and then the preseason being 3 months away. Join the channel today. Hit that sub button for daily Miami Dolphins content, and I'll see you with another video tomorrow.